Okay. All right. Am I on? Okay. Doesn't look like it's working. All right. I think I'm on. Yeah. Cool. All right. I think I'm on. If anybody's on and you can hear me, put something in the chat so I know that I'm actually live. I had a couple of issues here with the computer system, but I think I'm good now. Um, just give that a second, see if anybody's got me on here. There you go. All right, cool. Thank you. Drinking some tea today, feeling good. All right, let's get started. I got a long talk today. Um, It's a lot of things I want to talk about. Basically, this this talk today is the culmination of a few different things. Um, one of those things is I reread this book called The Alchemist. And I read the book like maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago. It's been a while. And when I read it back then, I thought it was this like fun, sort of little like adventure story of this boy who's a shepherd and he leaves Spain and he wants to travel to the pyramids and he wants to see the pyramids and he has some interesting adventures along the way. And I always loved adventure stories and I've always wanted to travel. I've been lucky enough to travel around the world. So it resonated with me then. And then I was on this long road trip several weeks ago, and I decided to listen to the book. See, I like to do audiobooks when I drive. And so I decided to listen to it again. It was just as a fun book to listen to. But as I listened to it the second time, this book hit me in a completely different way. And I finally got the message that the author is trying to convey in that book. And so immediately upon hearing that, I said, "Oh," reading that, I said, "Oh, I gotta share this with everybody uh, because it plays into what's going on with me in my life and how I've been living my life." So we'll get into that a little bit more. The other thing that happened was my friends in Hong Kong sent me this little porcelain horse for the year of the horse, and that's tradition for them. And when I got it, I thought that was interesting, and so I decided to read up on it. And I read up on this transition from the year of the snake into the year of the horse and what that signifies. So looking at those two things and thinking about myself and the ambition that I have and the drive that I have and what I want to inspire all of you to, it really started coming together in this talk. So I put out a couple videos and here we go. So let's have a live about it. Um, so the first thing is um, what I got out of, let's see, the Alchemist is this boy is traveling and he is after his personal legend, as the book puts it. And so he's going to get this thing and he's on this mission. And that's how I feel. I feel like I'm on this mission. I've got this place I want to go and this thing I want to do and I want to get out there and I want to get it, do it. Um, and so what I've realized about myself recently, um, I had a very tumultuous year last year, caused me to like really think about myself and think about how I'm doing things in my life. Um, and I started a relationship this fall with this woman, and she's really great. And then I started seeing myself fall into these recurring patterns that happen in my life. And what I noticed about myself is every time that I've been in a relationship, I start to shrink myself. I start to say, "Well, don't reach that far. Don't do that much. Don't go there. Don't do these things because I have to put a certain amount of effort, and I feel obligated." And that's on me, right? That's something that I've got to work through. Is why do I feel so obligated when I'm in a relationship to pour most of my energy into that and abandon my personal legend or abandon my mission? And so I started feeling myself do that again. And, I had a talk with her. We talked about it. Um, and it was not an easy thing. It was definitely a painful thing, but we were able to talk through it. And we're going to do a podcast episode about it, me and her, and we're going to talk all about it because I think there's a lot of learning in there for everybody. And it's about having compassion and having empathy for the other person, even when things are not going the way you want them to go. And so she really took that well, and I congratulate her on that. It was not an easy thing, and I love her dearly. But what I found that I need to do at this moment is I need to go on my mission. I need to focus on my mission. And so I don't know if you caught my video the other day, but I've got some goals for 2026. And part of what we're going to talk about in this talk is that, you can't do it all. You need to, at some point, cut back and say, okay, I want to focus my attention here. Then I need to cut some things out of my life, right? And so what I'm doing in 2026 is I've got my goals, and I'm going to cut out relationships this year. I'm not going to have any relationships this year because I haven't learned how to not shrink myself when I'm in a relationship. And so I'm taking that out this year, and that's going to come off my plate so I can focus on my mission and further understanding myself. The other thing I'm going to do this year is a symbolic gesture, but it's something that will remind me every day of the mission that I'm on this year and what I'm trying to do. And so that second thing I'm going to do this year is I'm not cutting my hair. I actually stopped cutting my hair, I don't know, a couple months ago. So you guys can see the glory that is this wild hair I have. It's sitting down right now because I had my hat on. I just took a shower, but when I wake up in the morning, I mean, this thing is just it just grows vertical. I don't really know. It's wild. So I'm not cutting my hair, and I'm doing that as a symbolic gesture because every day when I wake up and I've got this wild, crazy hair, it's going to remind me of the path that I'm on. It remind me of the commitment I made this year to myself, and that is to focus this year 100% on my mission. Uh, and so, yeah, so no cutting the hair, and I'll keep giving you guys updates as we go along. So let's get back into the story here. So I started feeling myself start to shrink, right? And I'm sure all of you felt that. And you want to pay attention to that when that starts to happen, right? Because shrinking is this subtle thing. It's something that feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels stable, right? We start to say to ourselves, I don't need to do this because this is the more responsible thing to do. And, this is the more mature thing, right? I should uh, stop my dreams or put aside my dreams or maybe downsize my dreams in order to be this responsible, mature adult, right? And so what happens when we start talking that way ourselves is we stop chasing our dreams. We stop taking risks, right? We negotiate down our potential, right? We start to say, well, I can only do this, or I can only do that. Where I want to dream big. I want to dream big and I want to live out my personal legend and live out my mission and get what I want to get out of life. So, we think about things as like comforts, right? We have our comforts, our home, our comforts, and then we have our calling and what's calling us to do. What do we want to do, right? And my calling right now is to build my show, to create a traveling show, to get on the road and travel across the United States doing this show. That's my big goal. That's where I'm headed. And so I've got that calling that says do this. But in order to do that, I need to let go of a lot of comforts in my life. And so it's trading that stability for that expansion, right? It's trading that maintenance over movement, right? We want to we want to just sit here and maintain our lives and do this, and that's fine. But I want to move, and so it's a trade, right? We can't have maintenance without move and movement at the same time. It's one or the other. We can't have that stability and that expansion. It's one or the other. You've got to cut things out of your life in order to get to those goals you want to be. And so what we find is that most people don't fail their dreams, right? Most people downgrade their dreams. And there's a distinction there we want to talk about because failing your dream, saying, okay, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to do it until the end, and you don't do it, or you try everything you got and you actually fail, right? there's a sense of accomplishment in that. There's a sense of like, well, I did everything I possibly could do, and it just didn't work. And when that's happened in my life, that's happened many times. It's happened in relationships, and that's happened in jobs, and that's happened in projects. Uh, and I feel okay about it at the end. But what I won't feel okay about is downgrading them, right? And so that's what people do mostly. People don't fail their dreams. They don't run those dreams out to the end. They start to downgrade those dreams. Okay. For example, I want to build a traveling show. I want the tour bus. I want the RVs. I want the tractor, the trailers. I want everything. I want a big ass tent. I want to go around the United States. I want to do all that. And what downgrading would look like would for me to say, well, okay, maybe not a maybe I don't need the tour bus. Maybe we'll just have a regular bus. And maybe we won't tour the whole US. Maybe we'll just tour New England, or maybe we'll just stay in Massachusetts, or maybe just in Providence. It's that downgrading. You start to negotiate with yourself. And so hold on to those dreams. Hold on to those dreams. And when you want to really achieve something in your life, again, you gotta trim something else out, right? It's choose that comfort or choose your calling. Choose that stability or choose your expansion. Choose that maintenance, choose your movement. So I speak about all this. Hold on, I need a little sip of tea here. This is a strawberry mint tea. It's actually really fantastic. So I'm speaking to you about all of this now, not out of not out of like just trying to be inspirational or trying to tell you where I'm going, but I'm actually speaking this out of experience. So what all of you probably don't know about me is you don't really know. Nobody really knows what I do for my day job, right? Uh, Shocker here, but Blackbeard is not my day job. This is my side mission. Uh, so I have an actual day job, and I have achieved some remarkable things in that day job. I've For the last 20 years, I've been working hard on that. I've taken no shortcuts. I manage a global team all over the world, engineering team. I've got 15 patents assigned to my name. I've published research papers. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm telling you this because I want to show this pattern of building these dreams that I've done. And so I had a dream early on in my career when I started of two things. One, I wanted to travel the world. And two, I wanted to publish a research paper. And I achieved both of those things. I've been to 26 different countries, or 27, so 27 different countries. I have, um, and I've actually published a research paper. And it's fascinating because I don't have a PhD. Um, and so these were dreams I had. These were things I wanted to achieve. And I focused in on them and I said, I'm going to cut things out of my life that aren't serving my path towards that dream. And I did. I started in my 20s, when my friends were going out drinking and partying and going to clubs and going to things. I didn't. I stayed home. I worked on this. I worked on that. Um, at that time, I was married. I was married through most of that period. And my ex-wife was very supportive of me on that mission. And it was a wild time. It was a wild time, and I missed out on a lot of things that a lot of people have experiences in that I don't. I missed out on that party phase. I missed out on a lot of cultural media, or I'd say pop culture. I don't really know shit about pop culture, to be honest. I don't know shit about sports. Uh, I don't know what actors played in what movie. I just know it's like, oh, that woman with the red hair was cool in that show or something. You know, I just don't pay attention to those things because that's a lot of what I needed to cut out to achieve that my first dream, which was travel the world and publish a research paper. And so I did that. And now I find myself on a different side of that, right? I've got a new mission now. But the point of me trying to tell you that is that I've built something real, um, and it's possible. It's possible. I came from a very, very poor background. The things I've achieved in my life, it's unreal. Uh, so it's doable. You just got to keep dreaming for it. You got to keep going for it. So with that in mind, I know the feeling of what it is when I start betraying that, right? I've been through this in my life, ups and downs, and I know what it feels like when you start betraying your own ambition and you start betraying your mission. You get this sort of sunken feeling inside of you, or at least for me, this is how it works. I kind of get this like sunken feeling inside of me. I start to feel a little uh, despair, maybe a bit of, well, I start to negotiate with myself, right? Maybe I don't really need that. Or maybe I don't really want this. Or maybe this is all I can get. This is all I can achieve. Um, and you start to, you know, you start to betray that ambition and that builder inside of yourself. And I felt that many times. So I try to make a little course correction. So if we think about it in terms of standards for yourself, right? Let's think about it in that terms. Is you want to invest in yourself. You want to invest in your growth, and you want to hold yourself to some standards. Sometimes it sounds silly when I think about it. It sounds like, do I really need to do that? But yeah, you kind of do. You kind of have to say, I'm going to achieve this, and in order to achieve that, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And you need to hold yourself to X, Y, and Z, and that's how you get there. But let's talk about The Alchemist for a minute, because that book really, really sent it home for me. If you haven't read The Alchemist or listened to The Alchemist, do it. It's a good book. I'll post it on my page at some point so you can know exactly what I'm talking about. But um, I did it on Audible. I listened to it on Audible. It's about this boy, right? This boy starts his path in Spain, and he's a shepherd. He's got a flock of sheep, and there's a woman that he's interested in, and then he wants to impress this woman, and he wants to, pursue this woman. But he meets an old man. Uh, Let me back that up. He meets an old woman. He meets an old gypsy woman, and he has a conversation with her. And he's been having these dreams, and he asks this gypsy woman about his dreams and what does his dreams mean. And he's been dreaming about the pyramids in Egypt. And she explains to him that it's his personal legend, or that he will figure out his personal legend at the pyramids in Egypt. But it's a long journey and it's a hard road. Uh, and he decides to go for it. But he goes for it in like step by step, right? Um, he recognizes that he could stay in Spain and he could live a good life as a shepherd, but he's curious about this personal legend, and he doesn't really know how far Egypt is. So he crosses over to Africa, from Spain over to Africa, and it's like, I think it's in Morocco, and he's working his way across, and he ends up in Morocco, and he gets ripped off, and he loses all of his sheep, and then he ends up with no money, and then he ends up working for this merchant, and he builds a good life for himself working for this merchant, saves some money. And he realized that he could stay there in Morocco and live a good life with this merchant, but his personal legend is still calling at him, and it's still biting at his head, and it's still eating in his mind. Uh, and so he turns down this offer with the merchant, and he decides to continue. And he ends up making a couple of stops, and he ends up finding other places where he could live this good life, and he's tempted. He's very tempted to live that good life and stay there, but that personal legend is still gnawing at his head. So he continues, and I'm not going to ruin the whole book for you, but he gets to the pyramids and he figures out what his personal legend is. And when I read that book the second time, I thought, wow, that's my life. That's what I've done. That's what I've done the last 20 years. And that's what I'm doing now. They're just different missions, different legends. There was lots of times in my career over the last 20 years where I had a job and I was like, this job is good. I could definitely stay here and just do this job. It's very good. Um, but good isn't true. Let me say that again. Good is not always true. And what I mean by that is the truth is where your mind is set, where your heart is set, right? The truth is, what is your mission? What's your legend? What is the personal legend you want to go towards? And so good does not always equal that truth. And so just as that boy kept going towards that legend, I did the same thing. I left jobs that were very comfortable to go work for companies that were very risky, and took other positions that were risky, and took positions that were above my skill set at the time that I was afraid I might not be able to pull off. But I did. And so I just kept pushing towards that personal legend, and so I find myself there today, right? Personal legend is, this time my mission, or a personal legend, is that traveling show. I want to get to that traveling show. Yeah, there's been a lot of points along the road so far over the last 5 years where I've thought I could just stop here and be fine. I could be good if I stay here, but good's a trap. Good keeps you away from the truth. So avoid that. Avoid that. Avoid talking yourself into, well, this is the mature thing to do. This is the responsible thing to do. This is the good thing to do. Don't talk yourself into that. Hold true. Hold true to that inner mission. So let's segue this into the horse year. We just left the the year of the snake, right? Last year was the year of the snake, and today is Lunar New Year. If nobody knew that, but today's that actual day. So the snake year represents subtle sabotage, hidden resistance, and quiet derailment, right? Uh, it also represents some inner reflection and uh, basically a lot of contemplation and thinking. And so you think of a snake coiled up, right? You think of a snake coiled up with its head just peeking above the coil, and it's just listening, and it's just looking, and it's just thinking, right? It stays coiled in that safe place, and it's just sitting here thinking, right? That was last year. That's that snake. Um, that's where that sabotage comes in, right? That self sabotage. That, I can just stay here coiled up because this is comfortable, right? This is a safe place, and I just stay here thinking in my mind, um, and it's attractive. It's um, it can be intoxicating, right? It just feels very comfortable. If you think about Saturday morning when you're sleeping in your bed, you don't want to get up because it's too cold, and you just, you know what? Maybe I'll just roll over and put the TV on, watch a show, just not get out of bed today, right? Um, I had one of those days recently. So that's that snake energy, right? That snake energy of just stay inside and do your thinking. But now we're moving into that horse year. And the horse year represents force, momentum, visible power, right? Movement. And that's where we're coming into. We're coming to that year. So it's, we did our snake season. We thought the things we needed to do. We reflected internally. But now it's time to take it into action, right? It's time to move. Movement over maintenance, truth over comfort. And that's where I'm at today, right? That's where I'm going today. I'm saying, let's do it. Let's bring the things. Let's make the things happen. I want to achieve my goals, right? And make strides towards where I want to be and creating that life I want to live. And so this is the year. So if you've been snaking around all year like I have last year, uh, move into the horse year with me. Let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's move into that horse year. Let's take things on. Let's get things done. Uh, let's support each other doing that. You know, talk to me about it. If you want to be on a podcast with me, be on a podcast with me. Tell me about it. Tell me about the dreams. Tell me about the things. Tell me about your bold ambitions. What's sitting inside you that you want to get done. You want to do. Uh, so the horse doesn't negotiate. The horse moves, it runs, it commits. It's going to do that thing. It's going to get that stuff done. Yeah. So think about it. Think about what your life would look like if you chose momentum over security, right? What would your life look like? How would your life look differently? Think about it. Sit, sit with yourself and think, if I decided I'm not going to stay in this spot comfortable, I'm not going to stay in this job where it's comfortable, I'm not going to stay in this apartment or this role or this whatever you've got going on, I'm not going to stay there and be comfortable because I really would rather be here. And you just make some strides to do that. How would your life look different if you chose that momentum over that security? Yeah. So let's start thinking about it, right? Let's start thinking about that. I'm going to ask you guys some questions as we move forward, through this year. And this is going to be a underlining tone of the year. I'm going to try to stick to these things every Tuesday, and I'm going to launch the real podcast, the Team Villains podcast. That's going to launch very soon. Um, and I'm going to be asking questions. You know, I want you to chase after those dreams. I want you to do those things. So, what are you sitting around? Let's talk. Let's try this. What are you sitting around thinking is realistic that is actually fear, right? I know with me, there's been things of, well, I'm gonna, I'm going to stay in this job because it's realistic, right? It's realistic. My skill set is good for this job. I'm really good at this job. I don't have to worry about it. I come in every day and I do the things, and they give me a paycheck, and I go home. And I start to call that realistic, right? Say, well, it's realistic. It's what I can do. But is that really just fear of trying something more? Is it fear of making a change? Fear of what's on the other side of that fence? Think about that one. Think about what in your life are you sitting there now saying, well, this is realistic, or this is responsible. I'm doing the responsible thing. But are you really just afraid of doing what you want to do? really just afraid of making that move, getting that new job, starting a new relationship, right? Are you just afraid of that? Something to think about. We start to say to ourselves a lot of times, like, well, I'm just being practical. Or my favorite is now's not the right time, right? I'll tell you what, it's never the right time. I'm sure I'm not the first person to say that to you, but if you're sitting around saying, well, I'm going to make this change when it's the right time, or when I've got enough money to do it, or when I've got enough time to do it, when I've got enough whatever to do whatever, I'll tell you right now, you will never have that. You will never have enough money. You will never have enough time. You will never be in the right place to make that change. Uh, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm just saying, it, psychologically, you will just never get there, right? Because there never is a right time. Now is the right time. Now is always the right time. Uh, so that's one of my favorites. People say that a lot, and I've said it to myself too. Believe me, I have said it to myself, especially with my business. I said it many times. Uh, I've said to myself, "Oh, not right now. I don't, now's not the right time for that." And I'm kicking myself now because I'm thinking back. I'm like, it fucking was the right time. So that's a good one. Um, so yeah, another one I hear a lot is, "Well, I should be grateful, right? It's good enough. What I have is good enough, or I should be grateful for what I have." Uh, I'm not saying you shouldn't be grateful for what you have. You should be grateful for what you have. I'm grateful for the things I have, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't want more, right? Why can't you have more? Why can't you do more? Let's see. Ager just put up something I want to read here. Need to have a support system and need a passion to jump into your dreams. It is tough, but makes you go after your dreams harder. Yeah, man, that's true. That's true. The, Never underestimate a good cheerleader. Surround yourself. This is definitely really something that I've learned. I learned this lesson really hard this past year. Is if you want to achieve something, you want to achieve something difficult, you want to achieve that goal, surround yourself with people who are going to support that. It makes a world of a difference. That's the support system Ager's talking about there. And I know for him, he's been that support for me. I've been that support for him. So thank you, Ager, for putting that up there. I love you, buddy. But yeah, you need those cheerleaders in your life. You need those people in your life that say, "Fuck yeah, do it. Let's get the thing, get the stuff." You know, uh, Surround yourself with those people. If you're hanging around people and all they got to say is, "Well, you should just be grateful for what you have. What you have is good enough, right?" Or you need to be practical. If you've got people in your life that are saying those things to you, they're not the right people to be around when you want to achieve goals. So find people that be around you that are going to support you, that want to make your dreams happen, and that you want to make their dreams happen too. And I've got a lot of people around me now in my life that really do that, and the world of a difference it makes. So yeah, so I agree, Ager. Thank you. Uh, yeah. So let's get back on track. So fear, think about fear in different ways, right? Fear sounds like what's responsible. It sounds what's logical or mature. When those things start popping in your head, question yourself: Is it really? Are you really saying that this is the responsible thing, or are you just afraid of what's next? Is it fear actually talking? Yeah, here's a good one. Good thing to think about. When you come to these crossroads and you start thinking about these things, right? You start saying, "Oh, maybe now's not the right time to do that," or maybe I'll just do the responsible thing, right? Say to yourself this: Say, in 5 years from now, would staying where I am, would that make you proud, or would that make you resentful? Let me try to say that again. So when you're at those crossroads and you're trying to make that decision, do I move forward? Do I stay where I am? Think about this question. 5 years from now, am I going to be proud that I'm standing in the same place? Or am I going to be resentful that I'm standing in the same place? Sit in that one for a minute. Hey, Sin, I see the penguin. Thanks for joining. All right. So, um, kind of coming near the end of this talk. Um, if you guys got any questions, throw them in the chat. I'll answer some questions on this stuff. I got a little bit more I want to talk about, but if you got any questions, throw them in there. If not, I'm always happy to take questions another time. You can always send it to me another time, and I'll answer a private message or anything like that. So I kind of want to recap at this point where this whole talk came to for me. It was obviously reading that book, The Alchemist, thinking about that transition, horse to snake, and looking at my life, where my life has been. Um, I have spent more time in this past year studying myself than I have in any period of my life, uh, in understanding, who I am and what makes me tick. That's been fascinating. So that'll be an ongoing project for the rest of my life, I'm sure. Uh, so I recommend you all do that. Do a little bit of that. Do a little bit of self exploration. You know, and think about your dreams. Think about your personal mission. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I wanted to travel the world, um, and I did. I didn't travel it the way I wanted to. When I was in school, uh, I was a very I grew up very poor family, but I lived in a very affluent town, and that's a complicated story for another day. But all the kids from school, right? We would go on vacation, right? You have your spring break or winter break or whatever. You'd come back, and the teachers would always say, "Well, what did you do on your spring break?" Right? And my answer was always like, I did my chores. I worked around the house with my dad, things like that. But all the kids I went to school with were always like, "Oh, my parents took me to Spain. We went skiing in the Alps, or we went to Australia, New Zealand, or they went all these places, right?" And I always wanted to do that. I always said, "Oh man, that would be amazing. It would be amazing to travel to these places and see all these things." But I had no idea how to do that, and I had not even remotely any money to be able to do it. Um, but I kept on that mission of wanting to do it, and I made it happen. I made it happen, not in the way I wanted to. I thought I would go on fancy yachts and planes and private jets, like some of the kids at school, but I didn't. I flew economy class, and most of it was business trips. But I still did it. I did. I did see it. I did see the world, um, and I did achieve, the things I wanted to in my professional job. So it all can happen. You just got to think about what you're going to cut out. So choose that movement over that maintenance. Oh, hold on a second. Sin's got something here. Something that I heard in the last few months that helped me make a recent change was the motto, if you're not growing, it's time to move on. Yeah. Yeah, Sin. I've heard that one before too. If you're not growing, it's time to move on. Uh, yeah, I always heard that in terms of like my job or, you know, usually positions like that, professional positions where like if you don't feel like if you're growing, if you don't feel like you're learning new things every day or, the tasks start to get stagnant, and you're just sort of repeating all the time, it's time to move on, time to try something else, you know? And that's what the movement over maintenance really represents. So maintenance is, I know how to do this job. I know how to do all the things, and I'm not learning anything else. Um, Movement is moving on, get something better, try something new. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Sid. That was a good one. Um, so yeah, truth over comfort. Right. I'm going to say that a lot this year. Truth over comfort. Um, and that's sort of that's going to be my personal mission this year is truth over comfort. Um, I'm no longer going to choose what's comfortable and easy. I'm going to choose the path I really want to go. Um, that could be another talk because I've thought about that a lot, and I tend to water down my responses to make my responses comfortable for other people, rather than sticking to the truth of what I really want to happen. Um, and so I'm going to take that one on this year. I'm going to do better with that. Truth over comfort. Uh, the other one is good is not the same as true. Somebody told me that one. That one is a little bit harder for me to understand at first, but good is not always the same as true, uh, and that plays to the truth over comfort as well. It's what's good might not be what you really want, and just because it's good doesn't mean you want it. Couscous is good. I don't really like eating it, right? Um, all right, I should eat it, but anyways, you get the point. So I guess the main point I want to make here is that I'm not here to maintain a life. That's not something that's in my DNA. It's not something that's ever been in my DNA. I'm here to build one. I'm here to build the life I want, and that's what I'm going to be doing, and that's what I'm going to talk about this year, and that's what I'm going to try to inspire all of you to do: is build the life that you want. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to end it on that. Yeah. So if you have any questions, send me some questions. Send me some topics. We want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Um, this is definitely a topic I think that's going to continue this year. It's the way I'm going to live my life this year, and I'm going to live it out loud and publicly with all of you, so you can track my progress and see how it's going, and and hold me accountable. And I want to hold you accountable. So share with me what your personal missions are. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what your personal legend, your mission is. Where do you want to go? And what things are you going to cut out of your life uh, to get you on path with where you want to be? All right. Have a good night. Thank you.